Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here. I thought I would sit down and do a quick video for you guys and gals because I had someone ask me during my coffee chat live stream here just a bit ago. They said, hey, does BMI even apply to lifters? Does it matter? Is it important? Here's the thing. Bit of a nuanced topic. I'm willing to jump into this a little bit deeper. Generally speaking, most medical doctors, and you've seen it even in certain countries, I know in the UK, the NHS, for example, they have notes on that. If someone's a really athletic person, they lift weights, a serious weightlifter, rugby player, whatever, that they have to reevaluate some other things. They can't just say, oh, your BMI is high and it's a problem. And that's true. That is true. For someone who is not a really, really, really serious lifter, though, it is 100% accurate. So people need to drop this idea that, well, for the average person who just exercises a little, it does apply. No, just having big joints, big bones, a big structure doesn't mean you're not fat and not going to have health problems if your BMI is in the morbidly obese. So it becomes a little more nuanced though when we talk about lifters and athletes. And this is a problem because some people will see that and they'll say, oh, well, BMI doesn't matter. And I know some stronger lifters who are like that, and they're like, well, my BMI is really high, but I lift, but they're not lean. Okay, do you understand the difference? So in other words, if you're 23% body fat and your BMI is high, this is a problem. Like, you have to think about that. That is a problem. All right? Because your body fat is high and your body weight is quite high, and you are putting extra stress on your heart. In that case, yeah, it's problematic. If you're at a slightly unhealthy body fat and you're overweight because you've been lifting, this is not an ideal situation. So yeah, it does matter in that context. Are you better off than someone who has 20 pounds less muscle than you at the same weight? Of course, you're way, way, way better. So we need to be clear on that. Muscle mass has open-ended health benefits. So this is why this topic gets nuanced, because people say, well, does muscle put a strain on your heart? Well, yes and no. Yes and no, because it reduces a lot of cardiovascular risk factors too. Is our concern that over time, excessive body weight, even from extra muscle mass, is going to cause stuff like left ventricular hypertrophy? Sure, absolutely. So do we need to be concerned about these things? Yeah, we do. We do need to think of these things. But does muscle mass have other benefits that are protective that where if it was body fat, it would be worse? Yes. In other words, every single last bit of muscle, every last pound of muscle that you gain on your body probably lowers your cancer risk slightly. Muscle tissue is protective against most types of cancer, not all of them. Most types of cancer, in general, gaining another 5 pounds, 10 pounds of muscle over whatever you have right now will probably lower your risk of cancer. And it has to do with glucose disposal, it has to do with insulin sensitivity, nutrient partitioning, competing with tumors for fuel and resources. Like, muscle tissue is greedy. Tumors are greedy. Muscle tissue tends to win out when it surpasses it enough. Not every time, but we're looking at stacking the odds in your favor. Diabetes, anything insulin sensitivity related, muscle, every single extra pound of muscle that you put anywhere on your body, absolutely beneficial in this regard. Even if it's from using drugs. And this is where we create the confusion. And people say, well, what about this bodybuilder who died young with these heart things? And we have to look at that. But also factor in people who aren't bodybuilders and don't use anabolics also die young sometimes from heart factors. So just be aware of that. But what you have to think about in terms of really serious bodybuilders is the copious level of abuse, plus all the other substances. And I think that has to be factored into the stimulants, the insulin, all this other stuff that a lot of bodybuilders are adding to the mix of recreational drugs. This is a factor. Okay? I mean, Rich Piana, perfect example. There were not only all the excessive drugs, all the side enhancement in his body, who knows what complications that created. Keep in mind, he used anabolics, he used growth hormone, he used IGF-1, he used insulin. This was all self-admitted. He published his doses at one time. Plus, he had a pill habit. He was addicted to Oxycontins. Right? So he has a narcotic addiction on top of it. That's a hell of a combination. So let's come over and let's look at it from that perspective. Look at it from that perspective of, yes, the muscle tissue is protective against a lot of stuff, but the accumulation of effect of different drugs on your body has problems too. Now, the researchers will tell you that moderate amounts of anabolics, they don't have any direct evidence they shorten lifespan. And that's been a massive controversy because a big meta-analysis done a year or two ago, the leading experts kind of said, we need further research, but at this time, we do not believe that there is sufficient evidence. We don't believe there's sufficient evidence anywhere to show that anabolic steroids, even in the amounts some athletes are using, shortens lifespan. We can't find proof of it. This was the leading researchers put this out, and people got upset. And I look at their methodology and they're like, it makes sense because we really don't have that many deaths or shortened lifespan directly attributed to these things. It's almost always other cofactors. And they haven't found any correlation, and they just don't have the direct data. And it's not to say there aren't risks, but you guys see where we're going with that. But yes, the effects on lipid profile, all that. So this is what we have to talk about with this. Yeah, the muscle itself may be benefiting you in certain ways at a certain point, but the side effects of the drugs you're using to build it can start to stack up. And I think there's a threshold, absolutely a threshold. We don't know where that threshold is to where you go, now we are now shortening lifespan. We are no longer improving health, we're now damaging it, right? And I don't think that there's a fine line to where we know where that line is. We don't know where that line is, realistically. And that's just anabolics. You start throwing diuretics, stimulants, insulin, all those things into the mix. Yes, it becomes a whole different ballgame. A whole different ballgame. Because realistically, if you're injecting large amounts of insulin, we're undoing all these other benefits. Right? All that benefit of the muscles with the insulin sensitivity and the glucose disposal and all these things kind of gets counterbalanced by people putting huge amounts of insulin in their body to grow more muscle. And we know that's required for bodybuilders to get as big as they are today. They have to do this. It is not an option. So this is where we run into some nuance with this. But the thing that I would say to people, if your BMI is getting too high and you're not lean, you can't rely entirely on the muscle to protect you and say, no, the BMI is fine. We see this too much, people who have a gut. If you got a little bit of visible outline of some ab and your BMI is too high, you're probably still in the clear. Most of the health factors are being reduced by the muscle. There are a couple that the extra body weight, even from the muscle, may be increasing some cardiovascular risk. Okay? Be aware of that. Increasing a couple of them while reducing most of the others. And definitely reducing the cancer, the diabetes related stuff. But you may still be putting certain strains on your heart. You're still 10 times better off though than if it was body fat. And this is agreed upon by all the experts. So I know there was a lot of nuance to this, and so I want people to understand BMI matters, but there's a lot of context to it. And if you're a lean lifter, your BMI probably isn't a problem. It realistically is that you're probably going to be much healthier for having the extra muscle, extra quality of life, extra improved health benefits. However, if you're building it through various PEDs, you have to factor in the health side effects of those PEDs as they stack up. And they can reach a point where we can clearly say it is shortening your lifespan, right? And I think we see that with pro bodybuilders. This is objective, just objective. You can look at it and say, yeah, we're clearly at that threshold now to where it is reducing quality of life and health. In short, if you're getting so big you can't walk up a flight of stairs without running out of breath, you're probably going to die young. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative. I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.